I suppose people will never come back to you if they had a bad experience. They always come back to you when they have a good experience. And in my case, it's been a fantastic experience. And I'll tell anyone out there, just try and listen out and see what happens. So my background is primarily I'm in finance, but despite being a finance individual, I've always been very hesitant to delve or jump into investment properties. And I was looking through LinkedIn, which is my only social media, and I saw a lot of articles and videos that you and your wife have posted. And that's how I've reached out to you in terms of embarking on this journey on investment. And that's how I got started in this whole building a relationship with you and your wife in terms of property investments. So I think it's not concern. It's primarily one, the hesitancy to jump in. And if you're like me, an accountant, you're usually risk averse. That's one. Second one is just, in my case, it was just being lazy in terms of taking the time to meet someone, speak to someone who knows about the market, who knows the investment tricks and trade of the whole investment cycle. And like I said before, in my earlier conversation, it's basically once you do the first jump and you have a fantastic experience in terms of the whole journey, it becomes far more easier to progress on to the next step. So the thing is that I'm not a first-time investment thing. As you're aware, I've invested in land, and I've seen, for example, the value of the land increasing. Even my own personal property has increased significantly over the last couple of years. And you hear all these wonderful stories on LinkedIn everywhere about property. And I've been reading, before contacting you, I've been reading quite a bit in terms of the property market across the states. And I thought, if I don't ever do anything now, it's at my loss. And I suppose the other added incentive for me was basically, how do I minimize my tax liabilities without going through negative gearing or any other investment mechanism? So that was basically the extension in terms of me pushing myself, getting out of the comfort zone, and then saying, let's reach out to Rusty and see how we can help. I think it was fantastic from day one. WhatsApp group, emails, everything was pretty much sent to me either over WhatsApp. If there's any delays on my part, it was reached out. Any help required, you reached out. In terms of the entire journey of explaining how the whole process worked, that was first step. Second step was primarily shortlisting the area and then listening to my concerns, for example, and coming back with why you feel my concerns are not valid or could be changed, for instance. Third was basically, once the area was narrowed, it was then basically looking at the suburbs within the state in terms of what was attractive or what was not attractive, or in my case, for example, what was considered the risk profile, and then narrowing it down and then providing a number of properties to look at. And the other easy part was primarily a lot of work when it was done by your team to select the property, review the property, look at the risk profile, and then weed out anything that's a high risk, and then pretty much give what you think was basically a property that was very good. And I suppose the chances of appreciation and value increasing is significantly higher. I think even before we go into property, it was all about, first and foremost, looking at my own personal finances, my family finances. Second was basically based on the finances, what are the different strategies that we can tackle? And once we have the strategy in terms of understanding how we reconcile in my head what I feel my growth should be in the next couple of years versus what is realistic. Once we marry that up, the next step was then in terms of looking at the state, then from the state, suburb, within suburb, which area, for example. I think at the end of the day, I would consider myself a novice investor. And when you're a novice investor, one thing I've always learned is be open to receive information. At the end of the day, I'm a person who, when I receive the information, I can, not quickly, but I tend to make my mind in terms of, does it suit me or doesn't suit me? And whatever advice that you've provided or your team has provided resonated with me in terms of, yeah, this is the right thing to do. And there was no alarm bells in terms of any of the recommendations. As far as I'm concerned, it was a very comfortable journey from the first day I met you through a Zoom call to the day we settled the property. It was a very seamless process. I was more surprised how quickly it went. More than anything else, because throughout the journey you kept me informed. If there's any roadblocks, you alerted me early, so that prevented any sort of last minute stress. So I think within a week of settlement, I managed to secure a long-term tenant for a 12-month tenancy agreement with a further extension of a further 12 months. So that in that way, I think was a positive beginning itself. Since the purchase I think it was in mid-November last year, the property has increased by I think $40,000 over the span of 2.5 months or 3 months. Again, when I spoke to the property agent in WA, for instance, as part of this whole property management, what she said was there's hardly any properties available in that region. And so I think in hindsight, it was a wonderful decision to go ahead. And what's surprising is basically the hot market out there that's also driving some of the prices to my benefit, of course. Everything has a calling. Everything has a time is what I believe in. So in my case, for example, or anyone who's approaching you, I would say listen and see if it suits you, because there's no harm in listening. You gain a lot by, no matter what conversation, you gain a lot by listening. But ask questions, do your own research. But at the same time, also understand that in your case, Fingal Rusty, you come through a significant experience in property investment. So again, that your knowledge there has also helped in terms of making the entire journey far seamless. So I think in my case, how I consider is my time is just as valuable. If I'm going to spend my time, I don't know how long, maybe 3-4 weeks trying to figure this out, there's a cost element involved. And I'm bypassing everything by going to a professional. And that amount is primarily, in my opinion, far, I wouldn't say cheaper, I think far more efficient or cost efficient compared to if I were to spend my own time doing the same thing. That's how I view it. Because if I were to invest the same amount of time to figure out all this, it would have taken me more than a month. And that's based on the assumption that I find the time to do it and I don't put this in a too difficult basket. So for me, it was quickly shortcutting everything and getting the crunch of the matter in terms of location, the right level of information, the analysis, and getting advice. I would say, like I said before, listen, and also bear in mind that you have gone through the entire, both of yourself and Rupali have gone through the entire journey of one in investing in properties, giving advice to others. And I suppose people will never come back to you if they had a bad experience. They always come back to you when they have a good experience. And in my case, it's been a fantastic experience. And I'll tell anyone out there, just try and listen out and see what happens. It's not for everyone. That's the first thing I would say. But at the same time, there's no harm in listening. You gain a lot, you learn a lot, and then you just decide for the matter if you're going to go down the path of not doing anything or you go down the path of doing something.